Well, it's one of those chicken and egg situations. I don't really know if I chose John of Gaunt or whether the subjects inadvertently chose me. John of Gaunt for me was he was sort of vector into the period as a whole. He experienced so much, and I think that's what I found so fascinating about him. All of these massive events and the characters in which that he was around or crossed paths with was so. That was so fascinating to me. So, you know, Chaucer, for example, was his brother-in-law. He was the brother of the Black Prince. He was the son of Edward III. So these major figures in history, he was sort of always there, but nobody had really given him the due attention, even though his life story told so much about the history of the 14th century as a whole. Yeah, so I think that he has been associated with, I suppose, this sort of evil uncle, the Richard III type figure, but actually he was really not. And there was so much of his political career that people aren't really aware of, that he was self-titled King of Spain at one point, which that popularly people don't really know. They just considered him as the Duke of Lancaster. That he was also incredibly effective as a diplomat on the Scottish borders, so he was constantly negotiating with the Scots, and that was something that even people who were historians of this period, who not so familiar with John of Gaunt, were quite surprised by, as to how much influence he had in that borderland negotiation. But then he was also working on his own personal campaign as this self-titled King of Spain, so he had fingers in lots of pies. So I think that in popular conception, he was this sort of evil uncle out to steal the throne of England, but actually that really wasn't the case at all. So I do think these prizes are important because it's just really acknowledgement of the hard work. I mean, it was extraordinary to be nominated for a prize like this. Extraordinary. I never anticipated it. When you work for yourself or you're writing, it's few and far between that you really get any sort of acknowledgement for those hours that you're putting into it. So to be nominated for a prize, initially I think I was sort of slightly in shock, and then it sort of came upon me later on to realise the significance of it, and it's just such an honour to be celebrated amongst people who are so esteemed in the field. I'm working on a new book for Penguin Random House, which is called This England, and it's a new history of the 14th century, because it's really, John of Gaunt was, you know, my way into the 14th century, but this is now a big, broader history of the 14th century, and I'm looking at lots of different members of his family in order to tell that story. But I'm now wholly focusing on writing and research and just historical academic work as well, but no plans at the moment to go back into TV.